kind of end of the 80s, a number of questions began to really trouble me. First, as feminists, we were questioning power relations. We were questioning power relations within the family. We were looking at patriarchal structures of state, of society, of family, power relationships at the workplace, power relationships within intimate interpersonal relationships. And I began to think about the power relationships that were vested in me being the woman with the camera representing other women. So this was one of the things that troubled me. Alongside, at this time, a number of questions came up in my mind about the nature of the documentary photograph itself. We were presented with documentary images as objective, as real. This is photography's claim to truth, as it's often called. We received these images as indexical, as evidential. However, as we all know now, perhaps more today than at that time, that photography, while it has this very close relationship with the real, it seems to mirror the real, it actually interprets the real. It's just an interpretation of what you see. It involves a series of inclusions and exclusions, from the very act of framing to what you include in the frame, what you leave out, to the kind of image you finally select from the number of images you've made, to what is then brought into the public realm. There's a series of exclusions. The pretense or even the lie of objectivity that was presented by mainstream media was something that I feel really needed to be countered. Images, photographic images, my images were constructed, and I wanted to make that construction explicit. I wanted to bring the fact that this was actually a subjective interpretation rather than an objective depiction of reality. So I entered into a kind of collaborative experiment with 8 women, feminists, fellow travelers in the women's movement. This is Shahjahan Appa, who I first encountered in 1981, making a very powerful public testimony on the boat club grounds, holding a photograph of her daughter who was murdered for dowry. What I did was to invite each one of these women to collaborate with me to create an image that would somehow tell her story, that would bring in her subjectivity, her narratives, how she felt she wanted to be represented. I would ask each woman to select a place, objects, a posture, a gaze, and then we would work together within this kind of mise en scène, a kind of theatrical setup, and create a series of images. Sitting on her bed, holding her burqa on her hand, she said, I cannot leave the burqa out of my story, but neither can I wear it. So this was how she solved that, by having it there. Behind her are the accumulations through labor, the crockery, the steel glasses, and most critically, the sewing machine, which was a very important part of her finding some kind of economic independence. She also brought this little hut made out of a shoebox. And she said, मेरी कहानी झुग्गी झोंपड़ी की कहानी है, तो झोंपड़ी का भी होना यहाँ जरूरी है. On the right, you see the setup, the stage, the mise en scène without Appa. And on the left, you see her within that. She also included images that I had taken of her over the years. She was a very powerful public speaker, and I had photographed her over 10 years. When I finally presented this work, I presented it as multiple images, images which drew from the 10 years of photographing Appa, as well as the staged portrait. For me, this countered again an idea which was very dominant and remains dominant in photography, of a portrait capturing the singular essence of a person. In that moment, the essence of the being is revealed. While in fact, we all know that the very next moment, another photograph would perhaps present a different aspect of that same person. So I thought of these as multiple pegs around which you could weave a story, an entry, a mosaic, an assemblage, which would reveal multiple aspects of the particular woman and not only, to kind of try this idea of the simple, singular, essential